For their continued support, we would like to thank Simwood, straight-talking, forward-thinking telecoms. Simwood.com. Why not make Cloudonics your communication partner? Go to cloudonics.io. You can find everything about the VUC at vuc.me, thanks to Bluehost, and thanks also to zipdx.com, the conference bridge, and to voxphone.com for local rate dial-ins. Flash on conference news, 30 days to KazooCon in San Diego from April 30th to May 2nd. KazooCon is a developer-focused conference with the telecom user in mind. 2 focus tracks, dozens of sessions, plenty of networking opportunities with industry experts from around the world on the future of communications. For all the detailed information about KazooCon, go to kazoocon.com. By the way, discounted hotel room rates guaranteed only until March 31st. That's like one day. And you can get 2 tickets for the price of 1. Buy 1, get 1 for all friends of the VUC. We jump from San Diego, California to Berlin, Germany, May 14th through 16th. It's the 6th edition of Kamailio World, probably the 4th that I've been to. And they will cover a wide range of topics from classical telephony to the newest technologies. But most importantly, the VUC Visions panel will be there. Kamailioworld.com.
E benvenuti a tutti questa sera. Il nostro ospite è Lorenzo Miniero per VUC 13 alla solita ora del venerdì. Lorenzo, hai fatto le valigie per il tuo tour europeo?
Sì, le valigie in realtà non sono sempre pronte perché c'è sempre una conferenza alla quale andare, quindi sì, sono pronto per tutti i viaggi che ci aspettano.
Quasi tre conferenze a cui dovrai attendere, giusto?
Sì, ci sono 3 eventi diversi, quindi sarà interessante incontrare un sacco di persone nuove.
Gentlemen, please. We have a very limited Italian-speaking audience. Thanks for that intro, Corrado. Lorenzo, you're a longtime friend. We probably don't have to go through your biography from 2 years old on to now, but we do want to know a little bit about your daily activities, those that you can speak of publicly anyway. What is your day-to-day? Seriously, what with regard to, you're still involved in Janus and Meetecho, IETF, wherever you want to start would be good. What's your latest preoccupation?
Yeah, we've been working on quite a lot of things lately. So of course, Janus is still our main focus because that's what drives our business in general for consulting and stuff like this. But in general, we are starting to work less on Janus itself and more on the Janus collaterals, you might say. So how to use Janus in a more scalable way, how to monitor Janus more effectively, how to add new features that are not there yet, and so on. And so, yeah, basically my day starts. I'm afraid a bit too late considering the standards, so I might be considered lazy about that. But in principle, I go to the office about 9, 10 o'clock, and then it's just working there for all day with the other people in the team. So it's a small office. It's about 5 of us in there, but we get things working. Every time we need to have a coffee, we go outside. There's a beautiful sea just 50 meters from the office, so it's nice.
Fantastic. Are there people outside the office, like all over the world? Is anybody else contributing to this?
Yeah, no, I mean, to Janus in general, we have a lot of contributors. So we've been really lucky with this, and so this is something that I say often. It's one of the reasons why I was really happy that we decided at the time to release Janus as open source, because this was one of the big questions that we had at the time when we first started working on it. And it's really the best thing that we could do, because we ended up meeting a lot of people. A lot of people started contributing and adding a lot of interesting stuff. So many of the things that are now key aspects of Janus were actually contributed, which is really nice. And it's also how I ended up meeting very good friends. So the opportunity to attend all of these conferences that we were mentioning over there, I keep on meeting people there. I keep on meeting friends that I exchanged ideas with all over the years. I mean, you guys as well, I met, I think, for the first time in Madrid a few years ago, even though we had done a VUC shortly before that. So all of this was only possible because releasing Janus as open source made it widely available to a lot of people. People could start tinkering with it, playing with it, and so on. And it made it put us under on the radar of many people, basically, which made us really happy.
How did you personally get involved in this sector of technology, WebRTC, servers? What was it that brought you to this rather than some other, like artificial intelligence or virtual reality or augmented reality? Or are you in all those things? I don't know.
No, I mean, it was really a long series of lucky coincidences. I usually call it because I didn't know much about networking in general up until my last years at the university. So eventually, I started taking the network computing class for my exam, and I really fell in love with all that was happening in there. And we also had to make a practical project for the exam itself. And so, with some friends, we wrote a very simple, a small soft phone that was based on completely non-standard stuff. So it was our own UDP-based protocol. We used some Microsoft-based GSM codec to start exchanging audio and so on. So it was really ugly and hacky and so on, but it did kind of work, and so it was a nice experiment. And then I knew that this is something that I wanted to do for my final thesis, but I still didn't have a clear idea of exactly what I wanted to do with networking. So I had done something with VoIP for my exam, but this was just entirely by chance. So about, I don't know, 13, 12 years ago or something like this, eventually I ended up going to a meeting with all of the professors from the networking class, because basically at the time they did something like this. So they invited all the students that wanted to make a master thesis on this, and they, let's say, pitched the ideas for potential master thesis projects that one could tackle. And so they started listing all the projects. That was something like monitoring for video games stuff and things like this, and so on and so forth. There were several different ideas, and I was still a bit in doubt. And eventually a professor came in the back of the room at the very last and said, there is this last idea. This is related to VoIP, to play with something that is called asterisk and so on. And I really immediately fell in love with the idea. And so as soon as the meeting ended, I got to that professor, who is not Simon, surprisingly enough. It was another professor. No, it was called Alfonso Buono, who is a good friend now. And I started discussing with him the idea, and he said, okay, then start studying this stuff, and then we'll come back in a couple of weeks, and we'll discuss what we can do for your master thesis. So I started tinkering with it a bit, and it worked on machines, asterisk, that I had never heard before. So I started playing with these, with soft phones and so on. I got really hooked up really quick. And then at that first meeting, a couple of weeks later, I met Simon for the first time. So, and Simon is, you probably know him already. He's been in VOC for a couple of times already as well. And that's how it all started, basically. We started working on my master thesis. Tobia is the CEO of Meetecho, shortly followed after that to work on another side of this thesis with me. And we started working on our master thesis on something related to web conferencing, asterisk, XMPP, OpenFire, that kind of stuff. And basically, we never stopped working on that, because as soon as the master thesis stopped, Simon asked if we wanted to keep on working on this, to get working for the university on this kind of stuff. We started doing research on this, and eventually this started to become Meetecho. So we had started to build bit by bit a standard compliant video conferencing application, and we decided to start to try and monetize it. So that's how the company was born, how we then kept on working at the university, got our PhD there, and so on. But then eventually started to focus more and more on Meetecho itself, which is where I am now, basically. So basically, that's how it was all born. Just sheer luck for a couple of reasons, and then I ended up here rather than, I don't know, studying networking for video games somewhere else. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to have Emil Iva on soon, and we're all friends with him, and he also had a connection with the Strasbourg University, which brings me to something related I wanted to ask you. And Corrado's welcome to also chime in on this. I'm curious, for example, Emil. Well, let me put it another way. A lot of people from Eastern Europe, who come from Eastern Europe, are working on VoIP. And we know, I mean, James could name like 3 or 4 people. But also, I was surprised to see you folks, Simon, and the whole activity in Italy. And I wanted to ask you, and also, again, Corrado, welcome to chime in if he's been there that recently. I don't know. What is the situation in Italy regarding this? In other words, are there subsidies. How are you able to do this in a good way? There must be some nice thing about Italy that's helping to make this happen too.
Yeah, I don't know. For with respect to us, I think that in general, all the students that come out of the University of Napoli, in particular, are usually very well skilled. I mean, it's a very good university from what I had from the experience that I had, not only on myself and from the people I know, but also for the student that got their thesis with us and so on. So there are research projects that we could take advantage on in order to bring this work further and so on. But in principle, there have not been much VoIP-related scenarios in Italy, as far as I know, because I know that at the University of Pisa there were some professors that were also very involved in Asterisk and so on. In Bari, they are very involved right now, for instance, in WebRTC congestion control and stuff like this. But we were, let's say, as far as I know, one of the few that were actually working on this specific set of activities, mostly because in other universities, we were, let's say, the most, let's say, programming oriented of the network computing departments, basically. Others are more related to other aspects of the network computing and so on. Simon may know more about this because he was more involved also from the management side of things. I was always more of a student, be it a master thesis student or a PhD student, but I was never involved at that high level of things. But in general, we always had a good environment to start working on things, a good environment to test things, and as well, because we had good, great servers to play with. We had good environments to test all of the stuff that we were working on. The university also allowed us to often attend IETF meetings, which was of paramount importance for us at the time, because IETF meetings are usually attended by big companies and stuff like this, so you won't find many university there. So we were kind of a white fly in there as well, because you could find, of course, Columbia University or those universities over there, but rarely a smaller university from Europe and stuff like this. So we were really lucky in them providing all of those opportunities for us. I see James is raising his hand or something.
Yeah, I've got a quick question for you, Lorenzo. I mean, lots of people know you and Meetecho as the guys who provide all the conferencing and recordings for the IETF meetings. And you seem to have been doing that for as long as I can remember. So how did you get into that? And when did you get into it?
Yeah, it was actually part of my master thesis as well, because I briefly mentioned the fact that my thesis was working on Asterisk and some aspects related to conferencing and things like this. And the truth is that Simon had thought about some ideas about prototyping some of the new protocols that were being defined within the IETF at the time in the XCON working group, which stands for Centralized Conferencing. And so we wanted to start playing with those protocols and start to contribute ideas to that working group as well. And so this is how we got in from the back door, you may say, because at the time there was one protocol that was being specified, that was the BFCP protocol, the binary flow control protocol. And so it was being standardized at the time, and we started prototyping it, so both the client side and the server side. And the best way to do that, especially considering that it was a conferencing environment, was to try and integrate this into an actual conferencing application. And so the best idea at the time was playing with the MeetMe application in Asterisk, hook the BFCP protocol to that, and so make sure that all the moderation requests would then translate to allow this person to speak, forbid this person to speak, and stuff like that. Integrating it in some soft phones and the like. And so the first time I actually went to an IETF meeting, it was in San Diego about 12 years ago or something like this. And it was exactly to give a live demonstration of the work that I had done during my master thesis. So exactly showcase the BFCP protocol in action and show that it actually did what it was supposed to do. And within the IETF, this is usually very welcome because they are based on the rough consensus running code kind of approach. So the idea is that standards move forward if enough people agree that this is the right way to move forward. And if you have code that actually proves that the things are working, and especially if you have code that is actually able to interoperate with code written by somebody else, even better, because it means that it's not just, let's say, text written on a document or something like this, but this is something that actually was translated to code and is actually working as it's supposed to do. You've isolated all the things that may have not gone exactly the way you wanted and stuff like this. And from that day on, we never stopped working within the IETF, because we then immediately started participating into another working group that was called Media Control, that work on standardizing the communications between application servers and media servers using SIP. And so we started.
The whole thing's grown out of all proportion now. And how many streams do you record concurrently now? Because from what I can make out, you record every single stream, major stream within the IETF now. So how many can you do at the same time?
Right now it's 8 sessions at the same time, and it's about 140 sessions, I think, during the week. So it really depends on how popular each of the session is. So there are sometimes there are remote participants that are also presenting. Sometimes it's just streaming whatever is happening in the room to the other people's to the remote attendees. So the exact number of streams I don't know exactly, but it's usually in the range of a few hundred streams per slot, basically. So it's a lot of things to handle. Yeah, but sorry.
But absolutely brilliant. The whole thing is a incredibly valuable resource. So that I use it all the time to go back and watch the presentations that I've missed, or just want to go back and view again. So
yeah, the funny thing is, it was all born as an experiment, so just as a crazy idea, because it was actually shortly before the RTC Web working group was started. So we had this idea. We had already started playing with RTP in browsers in a unified web application. Of course, it was using a Java applet at the time because WebRTC didn't exist. But we started playing with the idea about streaming an IETF meeting session and improving the way it was working up until then, which was using heterogeneous components that you had to download yourself and play with that way. And so we basically just went attend an IETF meeting as usual, and then we sat in one of the sessions. We started capturing with our webcam and our microphone, and we started preloading the slides in our system, triggering things with our own mouse, and so on. So it was kind of a manual process, and very, very time consuming and so on. But at the end of the week, we had done like 8 sessions in the whole week out of the 140 that there were. And towards the end of the meeting, we also had gotten in touch with the IETF management that allowed us to hook up into the mixer system for better audio and stuff like this. So it really was just an experiment at the very beginning, just to see if we could actually improve the things, how the things were working. And then slowly, meeting after meeting, we ended up doing them all, basically. So
I don't think you could have a better advert for your consultancy business than that. But you, time and time again, you demonstrate how to do it, and on a minimal budget as well.
Just to go back to the question that Randy posed, in fact, in Italy, most of the information technology has, from my personal experience that comes from about 15 years ago, though, has come to fruition because Italians are tinkerers. Italians are trying to get the most of everything out of everything, so they're getting the value out of everything and squeeze all the power of the things they have. And if the things are not there, they make it. So that's some sort of help yourself way that Italians always had, and that's why they are at the forefront of technology, because they invent new things when they're not there.
I think that I have a very long story that I will not share with you, but I want to say that my experience in Italy when I had to go install some software is that indeed Italians are extremely inventive, and it's the one thing that I had that happened to me that's documented in a very long story, as I said, that I've written, is the one about, James, thank you.
I remember reading it.
The one about the point is that the taxi driver who didn't speak any French or English, which are the 2 languages I speak, and I had lost the address of the hotel, and he found a way to get me to my hotel just by driving down the main street, because it was a fairly small city, until I remembered the name of the hotel. Anyway, then he went and negotiated a deal because they gave me a room that didn't have a view, and there was a long exchange between him and the desk clerk. And then somebody said, well, how did you get this great room? And in fact, it was a guy who I never even spoke to in any language. It was all gesturals and stuff. Anyway, there's an annex to my question about Italy. Very simple one for both of you. You are both qualified to discuss this. So here it is. In the United States of America, if you go into any city and ask people, locals, for what's the best restaurant or good restaurant, they'll almost always send you to the Italian restaurant of the town. So my question to you is, when you're out and about or in other countries, what is your favorite? I mean, do you look for Italian food or do you look for something else? And I'm going to call on Corrado first and then our guest Lorenzo after.
Well, no, I don't, because I eat Italian at home. My wife is Italian. She's a trained chef, so I eat Italian. If I'm out and about, wherever I am, I prefer to taste and sample the local cuisine, whatever it is. I've been in Mexico and I've eaten unspeakable things. Let's say it like that. Yes. You know what the gusano is? The worm that is inside the mezcal. That is served at the end of, that's wonderful. And grasshoppers in pastella, nice and crunchy, very nice. So no, I don't look for Italian because usually it's a little allow me the quite harsh word bastardized. It's made to taste for the locals rather than for genuine Italians.
You know, when we were in, before Lorenzo takes it over here, I just want to mention that we were in the Lake District, I forgot what it's called, in Italy, and we spent a week there. And of course, we had terrific food everywhere. But at one point, we wanted to get something just that wasn't Italian, just because, you know, that was it. We were there week after, you know, day after day. And the only thing there was an Asian place. I don't remember which country it was from, but point is there wasn't much going on.
Very likely to be Chinese.
Yeah, well, that Chinese is not Chinese usually, at least in this country, in France. People do Chinese, but they also have sushi because that's popular. They also do Thai, because, you know, so on. Lorenzo, same question to you, though. You travel a lot. I'm sure you don't look for Italian places because they will never be as good as what you're going to find at home. But what other cookings are you cuisine are you interested in?
Oh yeah, I second pretty much whatever Corrado said, and I also tend to avoid Italian places abroad, except for, and this is actually a long-running joke that I had with my friends, I usually tend to look for a pizza abroad, you know, in all of the places I go, just to make all of my friends angry. So it's become some kind of a sociological experiment. So I just go to the place, I order a pizza. The uglier it is, the better, so that I can post a picture on Facebook, on Twitter, and so on. And I can have all my friends insult me because I've basically betrayed them and I'm being a heretic abroad, basically. But apart from this long-running joke that I was mentioning, I typically also tend to try as much as possible the local cuisine and so on. And if otherwise, I mean, I tend to prefer Asian cuisine in general. So that's, but that's just a matter of personal taste. Never went for grasshoppers yet, so I don't know if we're going to end up there or not. But I mean, they're probably not that unlike prawns or something like this. So
yeah. Basically, yes, they're like prawns in butter. It's the same thing.
The only difference is that they were not living in salty water. So I guess that's we're probably gonna have to get used to them sooner or later. But yeah, no, haven't gone there yet.
Let me ask.
I mean, if the locals eat them, why are they stupid? Exactly. No, they probably eat them because they taste nice. So why should I?
Well, there's an
and you in France with the escargot, yes, you should know that.
All right, I've had that and it's fine, but it's so garlicky that you could eat mushrooms that would taste the same. I want to ask everybody, including Michael, if you have audio, and apparently will eat anything crunchy. That's true. Everybody, where's the best pizza? Because pizza is something that's kind of personal, but I mean, pizza is kind of atrocious if it's not good, right? So I'll take you guys in order. What the person I see on my left first is Corrado. Where is the best, if you eat pizza, where's the best pizza you've had?
Well, Oddly enough, I had good pizza in Italy, but from a pizzeria managed by Egyptians. Egyptians are exceptionally good at doing a very good dough and cooking it very thin to perfection. But around here, nope. No, the usual Domino's or the other stuff, they are, well, tasty, but they're not pizzas. They're something different.
Yeah, but those are chains. Those are not restaurants. Mr. James Modi, best pizza.
The best pizzas locally are the ones made by my dear darling wife. But they have to be made with the right flour. They have to be made with Italian flour, and you have to have the oven extremely hot to whiz it in and whiz it out again. And she does them on these hot pizza stone bases as well.
Yeah, if you have...
But out and about.
Yeah. Out and about. We always try and get a kind of a native Italian.
Germany, you guys go around a pizza.
Surprisingly, they're
100 meters wide. Was that any good?
Sorry, say again?
The Berlin pizza that was like 20 miles wide.
Oh, the enormous one. Yeah, it was okay. It was a bit Germanic in that it had kind of German sausages and things like that in it. But yeah, but you remember that was a 2 meter by 2 meter size pizza.
Actually, we went to a place, you were there, I'm sure, one year. It wasn't that place. It was another place where all the usual suspects were there. And it was just the very good pizza place in Berlin. And we'll have to rope Lorenzo into going to that one. Lorenzo, what is your favorite pizza place that's not a chain, obviously?
Yeah, oh no, we don't have pizza chains in here. I mean, there are a few, but we tend to avoid them. I mean, you mean not apart from here, you say?
Well, it could be there and another place. So Italy and somewhere else.
Because in Italy, there's one that is close to where I used to live. That is probably my favorite pizza in the world, which is called Mezzaluna. Is the name of the restaurant. If you ever end up in this place in Sant'Agnello, that's probably my best pizza in the world. Even though, funnily enough, there is a friend of mine who has starting to learn how to prepare pizza in home, and he's actually getting really good at that. So, and he made one of the best pizzas I've ever eaten. Then abroad, I don't know, because I've eaten some. Maybe one that was surprisingly good was one that I ate with Saul ed Iñaki in Amsterdam, I think last year. So Saul brought us to this place that he knew, and he brought us to eat pizza there, and it was actually surprisingly good. So something that I did not expect. It was in Amsterdam. I don't remember the place though.
I think that there are places all over the world that make good pizza, but they're just not. They're few and far between. Michael.
Yes, absolutely. There's good pizza everywhere, but the problem is it's a statistical difficulty trying to find it. And we are surrounded by places that make pizza. Our favorites, there's one, it's a family-owned outfit, although they do have 3 of them. It's called Collina's Italian Cafe. And they're in a part of town that is dry. And so they have corkage. You can bring your own bottle of wine, and the prices are reasonable. The pizza's excellent. There's another one. The restaurant scene in Houston is dominated by 3 families. One are the Mandolas, and they have a place called Janus that's very, very good pizza, wood-fired ovens, etc. But there's a fair few around.
Okay, perfect. Just a side note, I used to play with a guy named Louis Pardini in Fresno, and his family, he is Italian. I'm sure his grandfather came over, and they had 1 or 2 restaurants in the Fresno area. And Louis Pardini plays and sings with the band Chicago now. Pretty amazing transition from Fresno pizza and Italian food to to the band Chicago, and Louis is an amazing musician. Amazing. I personally, since I'm the last person here, the best pizza I've had, I think, would have been in Chicago, and there are many, many pizzerias, really good pizzerias in Chicago, home of CommCon, right? So James is nodding because he's probably been taken to one.
Many.
Yeah, they do a good job in Chicago. Of course, New York is very, very famous for pizza. there were a couple of places in Los Angeles, but again, really stay away from the chains. Go to family restaurants and have a pizza. If you don't like pizza, one of my real favorite things is eggplant Parmesan sandwich. Fantastic. Anyway, this is Visions of Your Cuisine.
Visions under cuisine.
Visions under cuisine. Yeah, VUC, Visions under cuisine. Thank you. Corrado.
Next guest, Giada De Laurentiis or something like this.
Fantastic. All right, anyway. Lorenzo, you, as many of us, are going to be in, let's see, the first is OpenSIPS in Amsterdam. Is that it? Your first appearance?
Yeah. At the beginning of May. It's from the 1st to the 4th of May. It's going to be in Amsterdam. I really love that event, so I'm really looking forward to that. Then and there I'll speak about, as I was saying, with some things that I've been doing with Lorenzo Mangani from Homer. So interesting stuff on monitoring and things like this. Then I'll join you guys in Berlin for the Kamailio World. So I'm really looking forward to that too, even though I will skip the first day because I have to be here on the first day, but I will join you shortly after that. And then I'm really excited also about the CommCon in June, which is the first event that then our friend Dan Jenkins is organizing in the UK. So he really managed to create a really big event. I mean, I was surprised by the wide roster of people that he actually managed to get to speak. I mean, there is a lot of speakers at that event, so I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there. Also because it's an unusual kind of event, so everybody is going to be in the same place. It will be only people from the conference, isolated from the world in this nice piece of English countryside. So, as I was saying on Twitter, I'll have to work out my best Downton Abbey kind of accent, I guess, just to fit in. So,
okay, well, that's great. Yeah, I think that the ultimate thing is to work on this Due Lorenzi. That act would be something that you need to work up.
Yeah, and Lorenzo he also said that we should open our own pizzeria and call it the Di Lorenzo's or something like this. Exactly. We already have the name, so.
I Due Lorenzi.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can I hijack the discussion now and bring it back a little bit on the technical, or in fact on the visions? Lorenzo, we've been talking about WebRTC for a while now. It's been coming for years. Do you see a step change in the near future with the adoption of WebRTC that goes beyond the browser and possibly integration with Internet of Things? So I don't know, a TV that has a WebRTC client in with a webcam where we can do what we are doing now from our own television, or do you think WebRTC will continue to remain a large but still a niche in communications?
No, I think it already started actually expanding in that direction, and this has already started some time ago. I mean, at first only with mobile applications, which were the first to start and try to adopt WebRTC apart from browsers, but it really is starting to step into the IT world more and more, and the work that Tim Panton is doing, for instance, in that direction is reflective of this. He's working a lot on this side of things with his new company. And there are, I mean, it can be for doorbells, for the baby monitors, or for many other things. I mean, I am aware of many companies that have started to investigate WebRTC as a technology for whatever they want to do with WebRTC, because it's not just audio and video. I mean, of course, the real-time audio and video is a really good add-on for several things, but also the data channel is starting to become more and more appealing to companies for whatever they need to do in that direction. And more in general, yeah, I think that there are some interesting challenges for WebRTC in general, because of course, as you said, for now it started as a technology just for browsers, and it started expanding. But of course, browsers are still a key aspect in this, and right now there are some privacy considerations that are, let's say, relevant in the discussion right now, because some people fear that WebRTC is starting to, let's say, weaken a bit some of the privacy considerations in there. So people are afraid that, and partly they are right, of course, that with WebRTC people can start getting your actual IP address, even though you were not really interested in disclosing it, like advertising companies exploiting fake data channels just for that and so on. So there are things that need to be done to strengthen that part, so that more and more people can actually start adopting WebRTC every day in their everyday usage. And there are also some aspects related to security that need to be improved before they can actually be used in a even wider basis. So one of the things that are going to be the next thing, I guess, are identity providers. So there has been some efforts related to this at the recent hackathon during the IETF. So ensuring that the people that you are talking to is actually the people that you are talking to. So something that there are the necessary bits in the WebRTC technology to do that, but they are not actually used right now. So they need to do that. And also additional security and privacy in scenarios pretty much like the one that we are having right now. So for instance, right now we are all passing through a server that are the Google Hangout server that then relays the media around like an SFU. But then again, this means that all the secure channels are terminated at the server over there. So if we wanted to make sure that the streams are actually really end-to-end terminated, even in this case of in this scenario, there are additional steps that you have to take. And this is something that they are working at within the IETF, within the PERC working group that stands for the Privacy Enhanced Conferencing, basically. So there are several things that I see going on in WebRTC that are still going to happen in WebRTC, and I think that this is going to expand more and more. I mean, the adoption of WebRTC is growing. It's going beyond browsers. It's going in all other aspects of things. So, I mean, even automation or stuff like this. I mean, there are several things that I see WebRTC being fit in soon.
Another question. Do you think that the flexibility of WebRTC regarding what kind of protocols and codecs you can use in WebRTC has, instead of helping, hampered the development of WebRTC, because voice over IP has taken the route of going down through SIP and RTC and RTP. So a very restrictive channel. VoIP, voice over IP, is done with these protocols. WebRTC instead has left doors open to choose whatever codec you prefer and whatever protocols. In fact, doesn't have any protocol it's itself to establish communication, as far as I remember, as far as I understand from what I've learned a couple of years ago. So that flexibility is probably a bit too soft. It's not sustaining the WebRTC skeleton. What is your vision on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, in principle, I guess that they did make the right choice in not forcing you to use to let's say to rely on a specific signaling protocol, because as you said, it allowed you to it left many doors open. It left you with more opportunities to do whatever you wanted with it. But more in general, I think that the right choice was not to try and build a complete infrastructure out of this, as they did for SIP, for instance. So SIP is not just a signaling protocol, but it comes with a complete, let's say, architectural solution and things that you have to comply to in order to communicate properly with the other endpoints that are doing the same things. WebRTC doesn't aim at being all that. It just is a technology that can be used to enable several different things depending on what you actually need to do. So what you need to do is a simple one-to-one call, this is something that you can do. If you need to do a web conference like the one that we are doing right now, you can do that as well. If you need to do surveillance or whatever else, you can do that as well. If you want to do your own baby monitor, you can do that as well. So this complete freedom that the technology gives you, I guess, is actually an added value in this. So any let's say constraint that you might have added to WebRTC would have limited the expansion that WebRTC could have had in the definition and in its exploitation in different use cases and scenarios. So it's exactly, I mean, this lack of constraints, the fact that you just have a technology that allows you to have two different endpoints to communicate with each other, gives you complete freedom in devising any kind of application that you have in mind without you having to worry too much about how you are going to do that. So we have complete freedom in terms of signaling about how to handle the topology. You can do this peer-to-peer. You can have servers in the middle. You can have multiple servers in the middle that actually relay the media and so on. I really like the level of freedom that WebRTC gives you, and this is exactly one of the reasons why we started writing Janus in the first place, because we wanted something that was as flexible and general purpose as possible, and that could be adapted and integrated in completely heterogeneous and different scenarios, even those that we haven't thought about yet. So I think that's a big plus.
Okay, do you see that as an advantage? From my business side point of view, I can see that voice over IP devices, because of the standardization of protocols, have become commonplace and have become commodities. So voice over IP phones, I have plenty here in the office, are hardware devices that the manufacturers can make. Because of the flexibility of WebRTC, it cannot be exploited in commercial devices from a standard point of view, and it would be probably a bit expensive to implement all the possibilities of a WebRTC client with so many protocols inside, between licenses and computational power to support all the different codecs, all the different technologies. I know that mobile phones can do that, but mobile phones are practically more powerful than what we use to send people to the moon. We have computational devices very strong there. It's the
Point being, we have a wheel. Let's not reinvent it. You don't have to do all of these things anymore.
No.
You can load a browser on an appliance, and the browser code will bring with it from the open source domain all those things you need to have a valid WebRTC endpoint. I'd like to interject for just 1 second, though, to ask an opinion on something that's kind of cutting edge. And I've been reading a lot about this brand new video codec that has just been released into the open source world called AV1, which seems like it's going to give the H.265 people and maybe VP9 a bit of a run for their money in the entertainment space. Have you heard of this? Do you see any application in WebRTC realm or otherwise?
I think it might be a perfect candidate actually to make everybody happy in the WebRTC world for video, because as you know, video has been a tough nut to crack in the WebRTC standardization. You probably know all about the video codec wars in WebRTC. So the famous or the infamous VP8 version 664.
I have the scars.
Exactly. So I mean, this might be just the codec that makes that let's say makes everybody happy in that sense. So I mean, it's something that we cannot use right now, because I don't think there are still packetization rules for RTP for AV1 in the first place. But as soon as that happens, I don't see. It wouldn't surprise me if they ended up, let's say, suggesting it as a mandatory to implement codec within WebRTC, because it's the codec that would make all browsers aligned to actually a single codec, a single high quality codec, specifically to implement in all appliances. Because right now, of course, we have VP8 and H.264, but we know that, for instance, Apple and Safari doesn't implement VP8, even though it's mandatory to implement. So that's something that you cannot safely rely on. H.264 you can use, but only in the baseline profile, which means that there is only so much that you can do with quality-wise. So with AV1, I see a perfect opportunity to actually do something the right way with a very good quality codec that is actually backed by the main companies that would otherwise have backed proprietary solutions like H.264 or H.265 for that matter.
And I think it brings with it another opportunity, and that is it will probably draw down batteries faster than any other codec in existence, because it's newest and most sophisticated, and we're going to have quite a long time before it's implemented in hardware. So new things are not without their downsides, but I agree with you. I think it has a good deal of potential. I'm looking forward.
I think though that, considering the people that are backing it, there may be a faster adoption also hardware-wise, because if you think about it, for instance, Netflix and other companies backing it and so on, it means that the sooner this codec will be in smart TVs and so on, the better. So I guess that in that case, they might be interested in having some form of hardware support for this codec as soon as possible in order to exploit it.
Yeah, as soon as the system on chip people adopt, can get access to, primary or reference designs that whether they're FPGA based code or whatnot, then it won't be long before it's actually available in TVs and whatnot. So, most excellent.
This is the time when we ask people on ZipDX if they're interested in asking a question to hit *6 or comment. Or also, we're watching IRC. I've neglected Masto, but we'll get to masto.vuc.me in a second. Take a look there. If there's any live questions. It also looks like I have, there's nothing particular on Twitter.
Twitter, people still use that?
Yeah, I'm having a discussion with somebody about the Mastodon thing who asked me, how do you find Mastodon? This brings us to a more kind of an interesting point, which is that Lorenzo and I have communicated on Twitter because, we're both on Twitter and we DM, and that seems to work fine. But there's a lot of discussion. A lot of people are quitting Facebook and trying to get away from Google and so on. And really, the only real solution is either to go back to email 1 and SMS 2, or drag people onto Wire, in which case you really need to have an interest in a group. Or Mastodon, same thing, you need a group. And nobody really understands, apparently, what Mastodon is, and we're not going to get into that now. But I would like to, since I mentioned that Lorenzo and I initiated this contact on DM on Twitter, I mean, what are we all going to be doing here? Because here we are, we're on, lowest common denominator, email. What does everybody have on their minds as far as talking to people? I'm off Facebook. I never used it much, but I'm totally off of it now. James, I don't know how to talk to you except on Wire. You don't answer any of your phones. You have 70,000 numbers.
That's not true. I have so many ways of being communicated to.
Yeah, but the ones that you answer, what are they going to be?
But I always answer you if I'm available. It's just I'm a very busy boy these days.
Okay. Let's go down the line from Corrado, left to right on my cue sheet here. Corrado, if somebody wants to talk to you, what is the best way? Is it, you don't have to give any addresses or any channels.
No.
Is it email or what?
I'm pretty open, but on closed systems. So Twitter, I'm okay with Signal, Wire, email is fine. I have an account on Facebook. Probably the last things that have been posted on my feed is from 3 years ago. I'm just using that because I'm administering some pages for people and groups, for businesses and groups. So I'm very well aware of the settings that need to be done on Facebook to have full privacy.
SMS?
SMS, yes and no. With the family because they cost nothing. But yeah, I'm pretty open to many of the protocols, but has to be secure. I'm not using WhatsApp.
You don't use Messenger? You don't use
no Messenger? No. I've always stayed clear of Facebook and all the spawns of that.
You really don't want to get into Facebook as a messaging thing. James, you have everything. What's your best suggestion?
Well, I quite like Facebook Messenger, mainly because it makes a louder noise than anything else.
Yeah, but it's atrocious, and
it's not atrocious. It works well.
It works well, but
I like
nothing
Wire.
private about it.
I use iMessage. We internally within the business we use quite a lot of Google Hangouts, bizarrely enough. And then of course there's SMS as well. And I have more mobile numbers than anybody else, I think, that hangs around here. So, but they all seem to work most of the time.
Okay, Lorenzo, you and I spoke on Twitter, but I also wanted to make sure that I had an email for you. What's your answer to this?
Yeah, I mean, I do use Facebook actually quite a lot, I must admit, mostly because I don't use it quite as seriously as I do on Twitter. So I mostly interact technology-wise on Twitter because most of the people like you I know are on Twitter like this. Well, Facebook, it's mostly jokes or wasting time and so on with my friends, with my sister who lives abroad and so on. So that's the main reason I use it for, and I'm not planning to leave actually, despite all that has happened. Mostly because I never share anything meaningful there, so it's just wasting time. As I think that's what it was supposed to be since the beginning. And besides, I can't leave because my fantasy football group is over there. So if I leave, I'm disqualified, I'm afraid, or something like this.
Perfect answer, Michael. I think I know what you're going to say.
Anything, the usual suspects, all of the above except Facebook Messenger. I have to be on Facebook because, like Corrado, I admin a variety of things there, but Wire, IM, telephone, SIP URI. I've had a publicly available SIP URI for 10 years, and only 3 people have ever reached out to me on that.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And as we proved in the pre-roll, I'll even answer calls from strange people coming to my Amazon Echo.
Particularly strange.
Yeah. But it's all good. Email is still the main thrust of it, though, honestly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree that because I'm hung on email, and of course it is. I'm using Google, so Gmail. I mean, so there's still this question of who are you going to call? I mean, Gmail, for better or worse, it's a free service and you can't expect anything. It's supposed to be private. It's supposed to be secure. What's nice about Ghostbusters, yeah. What's nice about Gmail is that, well, I lost the thread of that one. Sorry. I was going to say something nice about them and I forgot what it was. But I think basically I want to respond to a couple of articles I saw about Google. And one of them was from Lifehacker, and it said, well, if you think Google's watch insecure, what do you think Google knows about you? Well, look, when you get on these sites, you sign this agreement, right? And if anybody's ever read one of these entirely, raise your hand, but I'm pretty sure no one's going to. Really, Corrado, you have. All right.
Well, yeah. I do that because signing many contracts for the business, you have to go through NDAs, profiling, and everything else. So I read everything. One thing that I know that Google reads all your emails to find hunches and joint to get stuff in your calendar. I'm happy with that. I'm happy because I'm using that email for things that they don't matter if they Google. For Google, we users are the product, and I'm happy to be the product for Google. I'm not happy with what Facebook is doing, has been doing.
Yeah, I think that in the case of, for example, when I wake up in the morning at breakfast, I will take a look. If I'm not talking with my wife, of course, I will take a look at their newsfeed, and their newsfeed makes it really obvious that they know everything about me, because from email, of course, Gmail will remind you about your tickets, your airline tickets, your hotel reservations, and so on. They know all that, and you need to know it. But here's my point, and I'll shut up after this. I promise. Yeah, get out of here. I mean it. The point is that these articles start complaining about these people. And even with Facebook, there are settings to deal with this stuff. And really what we need to do is use our intelligence. We are not apes. Look at the ways that you can set up your account and make sure that the things that are sensitive are not being posted out to the entire world. One of the things that's really weird, I think, is that Google Maps, and I'm sure Apple Maps does the same. If you start sharing your locations with people, that's great. But, Google itself, for whatever's behind the intelligence behind it, not a human being probably, but Google knows where you are at any given time. So they have switches where you can go to your account and say whether you want your entire every movement that you made all day recorded or not. So I encourage everybody to look into that, including Facebook. I just don't like Facebook. But besides that, there's 1,000 settings in their privacy thing. Go take a look at them and see who can post on your page and see who, what they can see and what they can do. This said, Corrado, I'm with you. Facebook, they sell the data, and this latest thing with the games, if you're playing games on Facebook, I never once did that. But if you do, they, in their terms of service, are able to look into your contacts. And by the way, LinkedIn, which is, nobody's complaining about that. They keep hitting on you. Show us your contacts. Hey, open the kimono. Show us your contact. And then if you do it by accident one time, they've got your entire contact list and they start sending stuff out. It's horrible. So got to be careful. Just pay attention to all that stuff.
LinkedIn, since it has been bought by Microsoft, has getting a little bit more pushy than before.
Atrocious, really bad.
Yeah, I never use that LinkedIn much, actually. All I use LinkedIn for is to accept random requests for contacts from people, and then I actually never use it.
Well, it is useful, and I had a lot of contacts, and I just left when Microsoft bought them, but not so much because I hate Microsoft, but more because I accidentally clicked on share the contacts because they keep putting that up, and then eventually they changed the canceled from right to left. Maybe, I don't know, whatever. I'm human. I clicked on a thing and I go, oh my God, I just sent all my contacts to LinkedIn. That's horrible. I mean, that's just annoying. There's a site, I wish I would have written it down to share it with everybody. There's at least one site that you can go to, and they will fill out all of the complicated forms to get all of the information, all of the data that Facebook has on you. Maybe one of you folks has it, but you can look that up. Someone is able to get all the data from all these companies. And Keith is saying, in 3 aspects to Facebook scandal, and perhaps all. We should get Keith on here. Let me click on this and get him in here. Let's take a second while I find the link to do that. Oops, it's not there. All right. See if he wants to join us. It'd be great because he'll add some intelligence where I can't, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Lorenzo, question for you. How much of your time do you spend engaged in video versus voice? Is there, does video play a big role in your working life, or where does voice fit?
You mean as far as where communications are concerned in general, or
just in general
stuff?
Just in general.
Yeah, because in terms of working on stuff, it doesn't really matter because typically I work more on the protocol side of things. So typically, whether it's audio or video, it doesn't change much unless, of course, there are some aspects specific to video, like, I don't know, simulcasting or stuff like this. But in general, I think it may be a slight prevalence of video over audio just because it's what people want the most. And for communications, it really depends. So when we do conference calls or stuff like this, it's typically with video just because it's better to be able to interact with each other and see the person that you want to speak to. In general, for instance, yeah, exactly. I move my hand. But yeah, for instance, I don't like phone calls at all, so I tend to avoid them as much as possible. Mostly because it's probably just me. It's also probably a cultural aspect of things. Maybe conferences or something like these are more something that you agree upon in advance and you start to communicate, while phone calls are something that interrupt you without you actually. It's like an unsolicited interaction, basically, for me, and something that I never liked much. So I guess that it's probably more video than audio in general.
Video is probably just a more complete experience, especially on Hangouts. You can share your screen, so if you're doing that for work, you can show people things that you're working on. And I like out-of-phase communications, so emails and instant messaging, something that doesn't need me to be live speaking with someone else. It's a time saver, and I respond on my time and on my terms. No, I'm not forced to interact when I can't.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I think that fax in its day was perfect for that, because it never woke you up. Well, hopefully, anyway. And but fax was replaced by email and many other things. Anyway, James, you were going to say something.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was going to say. And taking that a bit further, these days it's considered impolite just to phone a person and disturb a person. So normally these days I will always message or SMS first to say, are you available to talk before talking? Yeah. And then inevitably it'll be video, or if we're challenged with bandwidth, it will be voice, but always a wideband codec. And it really hurts these days if we have to go to a narrow band 8 kilohertz codec. It's really horrible.
I usually tin can people to ask if I can text them. Then I text to ask if I can call.
Pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say the wideband codecs over LTE have been transformational in my opinion of mobile. That used to be the least preferred way of calling somebody, but now, particularly in the case of people close in to me, if I know that it's a good mobile call, that's my preferred way.
Okay, anybody have any conclusion before we meet Lorenzo at OpenSIPS and Kamailio World, if not before?
Well, we were having a little out-of-band conversation, Lorenzo and I. I came to the conclusion that what I want is some kind of AI-based agent that sits in between all of my multiple communications channels and me. When that will get around the problem that you have, Randy, where you try calling different routes and you can't raise me. But if all those channels came in and they were all terminated in some kind of agent, which knows where I am and what I'm doing and can converse with you, then it could say, what do you want to talk to James about? Is it really important? Because if it's really important, I can disturb him.
You're talking about the secretary, James.
Well,
actually.
Well, I think
an admin.
But we can do that
you remember Wildfire?
What about before that? Alec Saunders, right?
Yeah, but Alec was trying to
Imodium. I can never remember the name of this. Sorry.
Yeah, he was trying to do that stuff before the technology was really there. But I think the technology is up to the right level today, so we can do these things. And yes, I do remember Wildfire. I thought Wildfire was absolutely brilliant.
Before Wildfire, what was it?
But it was
the one Wildfire. I remember that's actually a diarrhea remedy. But what was the real name?
Iotum.
That's the one. Rhymes with my scrotum.
Oh, James, that's enough. We have to get
there you go. That's the time to close on that.
That's it. It's definitely time for the mature audiences version. Lorenzo, thank you. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in May. Is it May? Yes, May.
Yeah. For that Berlin pizza.
Exactly. Yes. I'm looking forward to that now. So.
And we have to go to that place, James. We'll all go there together.
Indeed, we will. Because you missed out last time, didn't you?
Well, I went the first time. Corrado, what's the percentage of chance that you'll be with us?
Close to 95%.
Oh God, I'm so happy. I'm bringing you a T-shirt, by the way. I have some for several people. So if you're lucky and you come up to me at Kamailio World, we'll get that T-shirt. Until then,
extra large for me, please.
Extra large?
Yes.
Can do. All right.
Small instead.